In this slide, we'll consider a negative consumption externality. Again, this is the case where the private consumption of some good actually yields a cost to society from one person's consumption. An example of this type of good would be, for example, a cigarette. Consuming a cigarette on behalf of one individual provides a benefit to that individual, which we account for here in the private marginal benefit curve, which is the same thing as the individual's demand curve. However, the act of consuming a cigarette imposes a cost on those around the consumer. And if we account for the costs imposed, that would diminish the private marginal benefit. So we shift the private marginal benefit down to get the true social marginal benefit, which is actually lower than the private marginal benefit because of this social cost, the cost of secondhand smoke in this case. Note again that point A, or Q2, is the amount of cigarettes provided by the private market. This is how much would be bought and sold when we only account for private marginal costs and private marginal benefits. If we take into account the social cost of consuming cigarettes, then the socially efficient equilibrium happens at C. Or, to put in other words, the socially efficient amount of cigarette consumption is Q1. The amount of cigarette consumption we get from the private market that doesn't account for the externalities is Q2. The difference between Q1 and Q2 once again gives us the deadweight loss. The deadweight loss is the difference between how much is socially efficient to consume and how much we actually consume from the private market. Note again that the benefit of consuming in this area is given by the red line. The cost of consuming in this area is given by the blue line, and since the cost of consuming is greater than the benefit of consuming, these are cigarettes that should not, in theory, be consumed. This is what we call the deadweight loss, or the loss to society from the overconsumption of cigarettes. And this is an example of a negative consumption externality.